Mother Knows Death, starring Nicole and Jemmy and Maria Q. Kane.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mother Knows Death. We have a great episode for you today. There's so much happening in the news. We're going to get started with Justin Timberlake's diagnosis. We have an update on an influencer who dismembered her partner and all of his body parts were found besides his head. The dangers of swimming on a full stomach, a child that sustained injuries from an animal encounter, a woman's struggle with insurance coverage after having a bat in her mouth, and a woman found dead with an unusual item, or should I say items, glued to her body. All that and more on today's episode. Let's get started with Justin Timberlake.
A couple of days ago, Justin Timberlake went on Instagram to shed some light on what he's been dealing with in his personal life and revealed that he has Lyme disease. Is it Lyme's disease or Lyme disease?
Lyme.
Okay, well, I've been saying it wrong my entire
life. Everyone does. That's fine. So there's been stuff going on with him, right? Wasn't he caught drinking and driving at least once?
Okay, well, last summer he got arrested for the DWI, but then he ended up pleading guilty in the fall and got a lesser charge, of course. I mean, we always see that these people that get DUIs and are drunk driving get, like, nothing. No penalizations or anything, right? So he made, like, a pretty good deal.
Yeah, but I did see that the judge wasn't happy with it, so he asked if he would do community service, and he said he would to any organization of his choice. 25 hours that need to be done in a year. So
okay, that's nothing. So
exactly. I was happy to see his license got taken away for a couple days, but like you rich enough to have a driver, so like that's not going to affect him at all. So I have been seeing videos go around the past couple of months of people saying that his concerts aren't great. Some people anyway, that he's been slow on stage and is not really dancing well and stuff like that. So this revelation that he has Lyme disease would definitely make sense to that, and maybe people feel kind of bad for making fun of him now.
Well, I think from what I was researching and the other pop culture podcasts I listen to, it's either like if you go on Reddit, some people think he's either been misdiagnosed and it's not really Lyme disease based on what he's describing he's feeling, and other people think it's convenient timing, the announcement of it, because he was getting a lot of backlash last week because I guess during one of his songs at a concert, it seems like he's in Europe right now touring. So at one of his concerts, you know how singers hold out the microphone to have people sing like famous lines in their songs or just a brief stint of it, but he basically had the crowd sing the entire song and everybody was like, all right, so I'm paying all this money to see you and you're not even singing the song. And then 2 days later he makes this post that he has Lyme disease.
So what symptoms is he having that people think that he's making it up?
Just on Reddit, the way people were saying he was describing it, it was really just nerdy, like he wasn't saying the right things. I was thinking about this when I describe I have something to you, I don't know the medical terminology for it, so everybody's just nitpicking that. And it's like, if I got diagnosed with something, I don't know the exact medical terminology behind every single symptom or test I've done, right? I'm just generalizing what's going on, and I think people could be pulling it apart simply because of that.
Yeah, and I mean, every single time I talk to people that don't have a medical history and they start telling me something, I'm like, okay, you're getting something wrong, or you're huge parts missing. There's some more to the story, whatever. But I mean, that's normal for people that are not medical because they don't really understand everything. And I mean, I don't know. I don't ever want to accuse anyone of making up something like this. And I feel like he's so high profile that, I mean, I guess in theory anybody could make something up, but the way people are nowadays, I feel like they would somehow find out if he was making this up. So he very well might be going through this. I don't look at Justin Timberlake as being like the outdoorsy kind of guy that would have all of this exposure to ticks and things like that, but that could happen anywhere. If they went on vacation somewhere and were outside taking a walk or something. I mean, my brother possibly just had it, and every single time he's outside doing lawn work and stuff, he gets a tick on him from having trees outside his property. So it's not as likely for someone that like doesn't he live in California or something with like palm trees on his property and stuff?
I'm not sure where he lives, but I know he is in the Hamptons often, so I'm not sure if like they have a tick problem going on up there.
Yeah, I mean it could just be he could have got it anywhere and it's quite possible. So many people get Lyme disease and what happens is, which is exactly what happened with my brother a few months ago, was he sends me this picture of this bite he thinks that he got and it has a very classic appearance called erythema migrans, which it looks like a Target, like the Target logo, it looks like that. And it happens in a large percentage of people that get bit by a tick. So if you ever have a rash that looks like the Target logo, you should always go to urgent care or your doctor. I don't think it's like run to the emergency room worthy, but you should go and just get it checked out because there's a possibility that it's a tick bite. And what happens is the Lyme disease occurs, it's called a zoonotic disease. Do you know what that is?
That's the transfer from animals to humans.
Yes, they're very good. So
I do
it
learn
it-
things
it-
sometimes.
the bacteria is present in some mammals, and then what happens is a tick bites the mammals, and then they bite us. We're mammals as well, and that's how the bacteria gets spread. So when you see this target rash on your body, that means that the bacteria is local to that area. But if you don't go to the doctor or to the urgent care and get the proper antibiotics, that bacteria can spread throughout your body. And in some people, it could cause serious problems. The most common thing would be like fatigue or feeling tired all the time and joint pain. But in even a smaller percentage of people, but it does happen, it could go to the brain and it could go to the heart and it could cause neurological symptoms um and even maybe changes in like mental status, some depression and things like that. So it is interesting because maybe he was experiencing some of these things and then I mean I'm just going out on a limb here, was drinking to help his symptoms and didn't really know what was going on because a lot of people, like some people just get it and move on and then other people really have debilitating side effects from this. So uh, I mean or maybe he's just an alcoholic. I don't know. I'm just putting it out there that that's a possibility.
Well, I think like everybody's putting their tinfoil hats on because they're like, there's this greater discussion of why do so many celebrities have Lyme disease in particular, and it kind of seems like it's timed up with scandals. I think most recently we found out Justin Bieber had it. There was this really famous storyline on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills where Lisa Rinna accused Yolanda Foster of having Munchausen because she had Lyme disease, and nobody believed her. And over the years, everybody couldn't believe she called her out on it, but it was just one of those things, like she was sick all the time. The women thought she was making it up. And I think it's one of those diseases that people just assume is this false thing or people are using as an easy excuse.
I mean, there are blood tests that can be done to determine if a person has at least been exposed to this bacteria. And it shouldn't just show up in everyone because, everyone isn't bit by a tick and doesn't get this bacteria in their body for no reason. So I don't know. I think like I do think that there are a large percentage of celebrities that seem to have it, but also they have a large platform so they could talk about it. And on top of that, they have, in theory, the best doctors taking care of them that might just work up every single blood test under the sun just if they have any kind of symptom, which might not happen with regular people. Like if you go to your doctor and just say, I'm feeling tired all the time and you're having all these symptoms, my joints really hurt, like a very good doctor would just be like, hey, let's just test you for this. But like we all know that there's not a lot of very good doctors that are on top of this. So it could it could be multifactorial. I don't want to ever say that somebody is making something up, and I know people do, but I just want to see the best in people because that's just awful if anybody would make something like that up.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, it would answer a lot of questions as to what's been going on in the last year with him, but at the same time, it's also pretty good cover up if you're just like losing control of your life and you're like, what worked for other people, so I'm just gonna pull that. But I mean,
I
we'll
mean,
see.
yeah, and it's totally possible that this guy's life is like upturned by this. And I mean, if it's true what he says, that there was talk about having to end the tour and then he decided to go through with it. So, I mean, why didn't he say something ahead of time as to now or whatever? Because it's like things are going viral that something's clearly going on with him. Um, and I like when celebrities talk about things because it does bring awareness, because there might be a person that's sitting around listening to this and just saying like, wow, I felt really tired and my joints hurt and I did have this rash months ago that I didn't even realize, and like get treatment for it, when otherwise it's not talked about like that, or maybe people don't care because it's not someone famous talking about it.
It is important. I've been seeing this a lot recently because on the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, one of the women had a lump on her throat that she never noticed, and she said after the first season aired, a couple nurses reached out to her and was like, I think you should get that lump checked out on your neck, and it ended up being cancerous. And then she shared that entire story on season 2, and she's recently posted that so many people have been like, I have the same lump and I never thought anything of it until I watched you, and then I got it checked out. Even a couple people in
It's
the
funny
grocery
that
room
you
said that.
it's funny that you say this because you always make fun of me for pointing out pathology on people.
Well, it's
You
the
think I'm
way.
like a
No,
dick.
it's the way. It's not that you're a dick. It's the way you talk about it, just so nonchalant. Like that would ruin my life.
If I
You
was
were.
just like, yo, your neck looks really big, you better go get that checked out.
I mean, you guys just have no idea how she's like behind the scenes, like in real life. We call her Doctor Death in the family because she just goes up to you and she's just like says something absolutely horrible, or you have some rare thing. But stop
Well,
diagnosing the people around.
one day I might save someone's life.
Maybe. Okay, so a couple weeks ago, we talked about the Beauty and the Geek star Tamika Chester and how she's been arrested for allegedly killing and dismembering her boyfriend. But as we remember, when police got to the house and found his body, his head was not there. Well, now they believe a dog has located a skull that they think belongs to the victim.
Yeah, so this is really interesting, right? So that means that she killed him, dismembered him on location, and then she did take his head and leave it somewhere else.
Yeah. So they're saying this dog was on a walk and just went in the shrubs and I guess came across the skull. So she just took this man's head and just put it like basically behind some bushes and just let it naturally disintegrate back there. It's just crazy.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what she was thinking. I mean, maybe she was thinking if she took his head, they wouldn't be able to identify him because obviously your teeth are in your head. Maybe not thinking, because didn't she set the apartment or the house on fire?
Yeah, they had originally responded to a call for a small fire, but as we know, fires don't often conceal murders, so like not a good idea.
Yeah, because in theory, the fire could burn enough tissue off to get even really, I mean, really, to get down to the bone would be even asking a lot, but at least to take the skin off for fingerprints, right? But you could still get DNA from the body, so that's out the window. I mean, obviously, it's way easier to identify someone if you suspect, like, they knew who it was, and then if they were able to match his dental records, that would have been, like, really easy for them to do, which they could still do now with the head. So I'm not exactly sure what she was thinking. What did she do with the head? How long did she have the head? Did she bring the head with her and had it for a while and it started decomposing and smelling, and then she decided to discard it in the woods somewhere? Like, what was going on there?
I have no idea. I mean, remember they were trying to like track her movements via like people's doorbell cameras to see where she had possibly placed it.
Did she have anything with her when they saw her on the doorbells?
I don't think so, remember? Because they were like stumped. Where is it? So what happened? How did she get it out of there?
Is it possible that, did they say how far away this location was from the apartment? Like, is it possible she threw it out the window right outside the apartment or something like that?
I don't believe that was specified in the article, but I do think they said it was in the area. But,
Yeah,
like, to your point, she could have thrown it out the window, but I'm just like, maybe she just went out another door at some point, or you don't,
or
you
went
don't
back.
know. Yeah,
I don't know. Weird story.
definitely weird. All right, so this next story is out of England. Back in 2023, a teen died after swimming in the ocean They couldn't find her body for hours, and the coroner has just come out now to reveal the cause of death.
I wonder why it's taking so long. It's weird.
It is weird. I mean, do you think it was like one of those they just had their records concealed because it was a minor? I don't know, because wasn't the girl 15? So
I don't really know like how they handle things there or why, but this is a really interesting story to talk about because I remember my entire life every single time because we had a pool growing up, and every single time we would go swimming or something, my mom would say, all right, you guys have to wait like a half hour before you could go in the pool after you eat. And that was like a huge thing, at least in the 80s anyway. And I think over time people have disproven that that's a thing, because I guess the theory was, this is the theory that was going around at the time, that all of the blood in your arms and legs would be going to help you digest food, so you would tire more easily, and you would have a harder time swimming and keeping yourself above water. That was, I guess that's the theory that people had. And all of these associations, including the Red Cross, have disproven that and said there's no scientific evidence that it's unsafe to swim after you eat. And in fact, just last month, the Washington Post just did an article saying that there's no scientific evidence to prove that it's unsafe to eat or unsafe to swim after you eat. So when we hear this story, if this is true and autopsy proves it, then this is in fact a case that can prove that it is unsafe to swim after eating.
all right, so what exactly happened in this? Because I would think, I've swam after eating, obviously, and I get cramps in my side, so that kind of deters me from wanting to do it. But in this case, it was just a little more extreme.
So apparently she ate a huge meal and possibly overate pizza and fries. And while in the water, it seems like maybe she possibly got caught in a current or something, and she ended up vomiting. And she had aspiration asphyxia, basically, which is when the vomit, so you have two tubes next to each other in your throat. One is the esophagus and one is the trachea. The trachea is otherwise known as the windpipe, which brings the air in and out of your lungs. And then right behind that is the esophagus, which brings food in your stomach and, well, out of your stomach if you're vomiting. So what happened was the food came up through the esophagus into her mouth, and then as she was gasping for air, she ended up inhaling the food, which caused her to have asphyxia, which is a lack of oxygen to the brain, which ultimately made her unconscious, and then she ended up drowning.
This is just really sad to think about. Like, you're just enjoying. I don't think anybody's thinking, like, oh, I'm going to eat lunch on the beach and then go swimming and then just think this horrible thing is going to happen. Like, when we hear these warnings, I feel like it's more related to, like, oh, your stomach's going to hurt, not like you could possibly throw up and choke on it.
I think the most important part of this story is that she was swimming and caught in a current. And that is a recurrent theme this summer, especially with Malcolm Jamal Warner's death. It's exactly what happened with him. And he didn't have a full stomach, so this didn't happen to him. But the point is that he was in a current and he was distressed and ended up drowning because of it. And this same exact thing happened with this girl. So, I mean, aspiration pneumonia is a thing that happens sometimes in alcoholics, and it's more prone in alcoholics, but it could happen in other circumstances too, especially like neurological disorders and things like that. But it's the same exact thing happens from people who vomit, that they could end up inhaling some of the food, but they don't necessarily die from it. But at autopsy, sometimes, especially in people who are alcoholic, you could see little particles of food actually in the lung tissue. So with this woman who died drowning, when they said they couldn't find her for a couple days, right? So she would have been decomposed anyway.
Well, just a couple hours.
Oh, just a couple hours, right? Never mind. So they would have opened her trachea and saw that it was lodged with vomit, which is enough to say that that was cutting off her airflow. But then microscopically too, you would actually be able to see particles of food underneath of the microscope in the lung tissue, and not in this case that it's cool from a scientific perspective. I always thought that that was really cool. So you could see, like, they said that she had pizza and fries, right? Like under the microscope, you'll actually be able to see like plant cells from the tomatoes or mushrooms or any peppers that she had on the pizza as well, that you could see inside of the lung tissue, which is never ever supposed to be there. And that's can confirm aspirational asphyxia.
Okay, let's move on to this next one. This one is so the pictures in the video from this are so crazy. In Texas, this mom was at an aquarium with her 6-year-old and he was petting an octopus, which at first I was like, is this allowed? But I guess this was an attraction at this particular aquarium. So this woman had been there many times with her son. They were regularly visiting the octopus. She was saying in the past the octopus would lightly grab her son's arm, but it would always let go. They didn't really think anything of it. But on this particular day, the octopus grabbed the son's arm and just wouldn't let go at all. So they're really calm about it, and I can't believe a child was so calm about being gripped by a creature like that, but he just basically said to the mom, like, he won't let me go, I don't know what to do. And then the octopus starts basically coming out of the tank, like, grabbing the kid more, and they had to call people over to get it off the kid.
I guess the weirdest part is, so she has a TikTok video that's almost 6 minutes long explaining what happened, and I really like it because she gives a lot of background on what the story was, going into how her son was into aquatic animals, and they must have a membership for their local aquarium, and they went the day that they heard an octopus was coming. They went to meet it, and it was small, like a young octopus, I guess. And then she said they hadn't went for a couple of months because they were traveling and things like that. And then when they went back, the octopus was huge, to the point that she said, is that the same one? And they said, yeah, it just grew up and it got bigger. Well, from this aquarium's own TikTok that they made about this particular animal, this animal is capable of dragging 700 pounds of weight.
Yeah.
And this octopus at this point is the size of this 6-year-old child, right? So the mom goes on to explain how the son felt comfortable touching the octopus because he has visited it so many times. And it is kind of crazy to look at the video because this thing is trying to grab it and is sucked on this kid to the point where a couple of adults, actually I think it was 3 adults, were not able to get this octopus off of the kid. And when they finally did, he had like over 20 bruises on his arm from the suction of this animal, which is essentially like having 20 hickeys on his arm, right? They're petechial hemorrhages, the same thing that you would see in a hickey.
So the bruises to me were so fascinating. I've never seen, I mean, I'm sure you've seen similar stuff. I've never seen anything like that before. I thought it was so interesting from the suction cups on the arms. And I also found it interesting that the aquarium issued their own TikTok after the mother issued her TikTok explaining how the animal operates and
I
how
feel like
it's normal.
they made the case worse. Like,
Yes.
listen, so when you get a hickey, right, it's just these little tiny blood vessels at the surface of your skin bursting, and they cause those little everybody knows what that looks like, right? Anytime you could do it on yourself if you just put your arm up to your mouth and you suck, or you're like my daughter Lucia and you put a bottle on your lip and try to make your lips bigger because of some video you saw on YouTube, right? It is a very specific look. It doesn't physically hurt really, and it might look a lot worse than it actually is. That's not what I'm concerned about here. I'm concerned that this animal, the size of a child, is able to hook onto it so strong that people can't get it off of the child. And like, who's to say, since that octopus is able to carry 700 pounds, that it doesn't pick the child up and drag it into the tank, and all of a sudden the child is stuck underwater.
That's what I was thinking too. I also found, this is going to be judgmental of me, but like, the mom was like, I wasn't going to touch it. Like, I don't want to touch any creatures either, but if my kid's getting wrapped up in it, I don't care what happens to the animal. Like, I know that's insensitive to say, but like your child's safety comes
Well,
first.
I agree with her. Like I think in that situation, if the thing was stuck on one of my kids and the kid and one of my kids said I'm not in any pain, I would do that too because I don't. Number one, I wouldn't want to take it off because I don't want to piss it off. Those so octopi,
Octopod.
whatever, however you say it, they have like a beak. They don't have they're obviously they don't have a vertebrae, so they don't have any bones, but they have a really hard beak, which is what helps them crack the shells of animals that they're eating. And they don't typically ever use it for humans because they don't want us, right? But they've been known to bite humans. It's not that they never have. So if my kid was saying that they were fine and you were just going to let staff get it off, I would do the same thing because you don't want to piss that thing off and have it actually have the ability to hurt the kid. And and like plus you don't cuz it's a rare animal. It's like on display at the aquarium. Like you don't want to hurt it. It's
No,
it's
I'm
not
not
the
saying like
animal's fault. Like the
I'm not saying go out of your way to hurt it. I'm just saying like I don't know because
so
there was no employees around, so it took a couple of
yeah, and
minutes for
like
somebody to come over.
I'm saying that too with the kid getting pulled in and drowned. Like obviously I think it's a little bizarre that she had to call employees over and like there wasn't someone immediately there. It was like kind of having to find somebody because this could have been bad. Like what if she was, I don't know, talking to her on the other side, talking to her friend. And I mean, I just look at anytime children are having interactions with animals like that, there should always be staff that have their all eyes, like a couple people watching what's happening there. So I think it's very unlikely that the octopus could pull the kid in, but it has the capability of doing that. The craziest part of this whole story is that the mom said that she went back to see the octopus like next time they went there. And that thing looked through the tank at her son and moved its location from where it was. And it turned completely white and camouflaged in with the bottom. Like it 100 and like went over to the sun. Like it recognized him. And it sounds silly to say that, but they're very intelligent animals and they can recognize humans.
Yeah, and I was reading also that sometimes they turn white and blend in as like a fear, like when they're scared or they feel threatened. So that I guess when there's predators, so I don't know if it couldn't differentiate if it was a
Well,
predator because it got ripped off of it.
well, that's what's really interesting because I was reading that when an octopus is in activity, they've been known to do like friendly handshakes or hand hugs with people that they like, which would be it grabbing onto that boy like that perhaps. And then it said that they spit at people. They like emit this water from people that they feel that are threatened that they don't like. And if you recall in that video, the second video that was made by the employee that was talking about it, did you hear her say that it spit at her?
Yeah, but do you also find by like the end of the video, it was like really grabbing onto her arm and she seemed like frightened. I don't think that video was beneficial to the aquarium
I
at
don't
all.
either. Like the whole time I'm watching it and I'm just like you're telling us that this thing is the size of a child and is capable of dragging 700 pounds and you're trying to make us feel like it's capable of giving you these hickeys all over or octopi kisses, whatever they call it, and capable of leaving these hickeys all over your arm for up to 2 weeks. And you're just trying to tell us like, hey, it's safe. Come pet this thing.
I think the point of the video was trying to say that like if it grabs onto you, it's very normal to have residual bruising. But like in that case, they need to have a sign or something on the side that is like just have caution, this animal is strong, but they generally are very friendly, but you may have some minor bruises after you interact with it. And I
It
think
does make me kind of just want to go touch it, honestly. Like, but also the thing, I guess the thing is that there's questions like, is it stressed out? Because a normal octopus in an environment is definitely not having interactions with humans like that on that kind of a basis. So is it stressed in the environment? I mean, think about like hundreds of little kids every single day, like coming in and sticking their dirty hands in the tank and everything. Like, is the tank too small for this animal to be living in? Like questions like that. I mean, she clearly has it on video, and you could see this thing change color like that.
I didn't even know they did that.
Yeah, it's really cool. They're really, really smart. Like, I want one as a pet.
This episode is brought to you by The Gross Room.
So this week we did our celebrity death dissection on Hulk Hogan, and we talked all about the side effects of long-term steroid use, which is really interesting. I also have another theory about what might have been going on with him towards the end of his life, so you could read that to check that out. We did our second live session in the Gross Room that is only for Gross Room members, and we talked about some other stories we didn't talk about on Mother Knows Death, like the gay couple that had a surrogate deliver their baby only to find out that one of the guys in the couple was a registered sex offender. And we also talked about that terrible case of that guy who killed those parents in front of their children while they were hiking. So all that and more in the Gross Room, and don't forget to sign up so you could have that exclusive episode with us.
Yeah, head over to thegrossroom.com now to sign up.
All right, so wow, this is a freaking freak thing to happen to somebody.
Yeah, so last August, a 33-year-old woman was visiting Glen Canyon National Recreation Area in Arizona. She had noticed a bunch of bats flying around but didn't think too much of it. Then she was taking pictures of the night sky, and one of the bats got in between her camera and her face and ended up in her mouth at some point. So her dad, who was a doctor, was like, you need to go to the hospital and get rabies treatment immediately.
All right, so this is when the story kind of got, well, I mean, I guess that's the weirdest part of the story, but so apparently she had just left one of her jobs and she was offered insurance called Cobra to cover her until she got her next job for insurance coverage, which she decided to decline because she just was very healthy and just wanted to take the risk and not pay the money. And right before she went to the hospital at her father's advice, she went online and purchased a health insurance plan. So she goes to the hospital and they say that she needs to have 4 different rabies treatments, and which she wants to get, which obviously, because I don't know if you remember, but in on Mother Knows Death, we talked about a couple cases of bats specifically giving people rabies. And in one of the cases, remember there was a bat in a child's bedroom, and the kid had like 2 pinpoint little things that didn't even realize that it was bit because their teeth are so small, like you might not even feel it. And that's why it was a good idea for the dad to say, like, hey, you don't really know if you got bit. Like, you should, if you ever have an interaction with a bat, you should go to the hospital. Like, that's just a known thing, right? So she gets all these treatments and then finds out that that insurance policy that she bought, you had to wait 30 days before it would cover you. So now she's stuck with $20,000 worth of bills.
I mean, I guess this is just an example of the risk you take, right? When you don't get the lapse or when you don't have the health insurance and there's a gap.
Yeah, like this is the thing. Like, we could sit there and talk about how things should be and how things are, right? How things should be is, this is ridiculous. You shouldn't have to pay for this. How the hell does 4 rabies treatments cost $20,000? Like, go on and on and on. But like, when you live in America, that is the way that it is, right? So that is the risk. It's a risk you take if you don't have insurance because of exactly something like this. I've said this. I mean, I think, didn't Ricky do that at some point? I think my brother's done that at some point. Like, and I always am like, what if your appendix bursts? Like, that could really ruin you financially, even though you seem like you never get sick or anything. This is like, I'm sure this was the last thing this girl thought was going to happen, was that a bat was going to go into her mouth, right?
I don't think my husband had health insurance until he met me and I forced him to get a policy.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
you hear this all the time, though, because people are like, oh, I don't need it and stuff like that. So, I mean, that was mistake number 1. Mistake number 2 is, like, I don't even know what she was thinking, that you could just go buy an insurance policy and then get coverage, because like obviously everybody would do that. There's always a waiting period. It's never immediate like that. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
you can't get in a car accident and then call Geico and say, "Hey, I want to be covered," and they covered the accident. Like that's, oh, I'll pay $20 and get this $20,000 thing covered. Like that's just ridiculous.
well, I feel like after they did the claim and stuff too, and they found out the time she purchased the policy versus the time she was in the hospital, that would also trigger a red flag
Yeah,
too,
of
even if
course.
there
Like,
wasn't a waiting
oh,
period.
oh, my husband just died. Let me take out a life insurance policy on him. Like that's not how, like, insurance just never ever works like that. So it's kind of bizarre that she thought that that was going to work. But I do want to say, I mean, to her defense, like, number one, I feel like things like this should be free anyway, just because it's a public health concern. I mean, you really do not want a person getting rabies from a bat and dying from it. This is like a public health. You know how like they give out free vaccines for COVID and measles and stuff. I mean, this is up there in my opinion with like something that should be given for public health reasons.
Yeah, but is the COVID vaccine free if you have health insurance? Like if you don't
probably
have
not,
health insurance,
but there's plenty of programs for things of public health nature that are free. So I don't know why. I don't really know. Like maybe that's something that a route she can go. But also just think about it, like, why, like, how on earth is it so much money? Like it's just out of control. Like $20,000. And I think she got the bill, like she got some stuff taken off of it, but it's still $19,000. And like that that just seems completely outrageous.
all right, this is exactly what I'm trying to say though about Luigi Mangione is like, how are they going to find a jury that's not been affected? Like they're going to find 12 people that have never at all been affected by the healthcare industry. And I'm talking about even this. Sometimes people say they review their hospital bills and see they were charged $500 for a Tylenol. Like, this is
Listen,
ridiculous.
I worked in a hospital for a very long time, and I'll tell you the waste is out of control. I'll never forget two different things that happened. Okay, so one time we a lot of times we work in conjunction with a lab called flow cytometry, because we get specimens that are fresh to look at lymphoma, and we have to put it in a special medium before we put it in formaldehyde. And sometimes with those cases, we would get blood with it too. That would have to go up to the lab with the tissue. And if we were not available to immediately bring that up to them, we would want to put it in a refrigerator until we had a chance to go up to the floor and bring it to them, or to have somebody come get it. So the bottom line is that we needed a mini refrigerator in the lab. Now, to hold a couple vials of blood, right? I feel like I just got my kids one a couple years ago of the size we needed on Amazon for like $30 for their skincare crap, right?
Yeah.
Those things are cheap. No, we couldn't get something like that because we had to get one that was through Fisher Scientific, and it was like almost $1,000 for to stick a couple vials of blood in. I'm not lying, right? So I'd be like, no, like I could just go on Amazon and order it, and it'll be here, and you guys could just give me back the $30. No, Nicole, you don't understand what the procedure is. That money has to come from here, and it has to be approved, this, that, and the other. And you're just like, this is total bullshit. Another time we needed a cart to do frozen sections, and Andrea was just like, all right, well, like I could go to IKEA. They're like, $100, not even, whatever, like one of those silver trays, you would push food around with or whatever. No, again, needed one from Fisher Scientific, over $500. Like, then we were having this thing that we were throwing out all of these, the little cassettes that we use to put tissue in to send to histology to get the slides made. So when I worked at one hospital, we would only print what we needed. But at the newer hospital I was working at, they would pre-print everything. And it was so stupid because I would be like, why? Like, you don't know how much I'm going to need until I do it. So why don't you just let me print them instead of them getting pre-printed? So nobody listened to me. So one day, Annette and I got one of those boxes that you put printer ink, paper in,
Mhm.
and I threw all the ones that I would normally put in the trash can. I threw in that box. In 1 month, that box was filled to the very top, right? And I did the work, the math on how much that was that I was throwing away a year, and it was $75,000 worth of stuff that I was throwing away, right?
That's insane.
And I went to my boss at the time and I was like, you keep telling us that we can't get another employee because our department doesn't have enough money. And I just proved to you that we throw away with just this one product, $75,000 worth, which would pay for a full-time PA at this place. This was years ago when that was the going salary. But I'm like, do you see the amount of waste that is going on? If that's just like one little product in one little lab, in one little hospital, imagine what's happening at every hospital nationwide. The waste is out of control, and that ultimately gets pushed off to the consumer, which is us.
Yeah, and I'm sure our nurses that are listening have even worse
Oh
stories
God,
about
I can't even
medications and
imagine.
everything. Yeah, I mean,
and then you get cut on things like, oh, we don't have any money for like life-saving machines or things that could cause patients to die or cause nurses to get in trouble because they're not monitoring patients correctly. Like, it's out of control.
Yeah, I mean, the sides of the story is like we can argue like why is the cost of American healthcare so expensive, and then knowing that, why didn't this girl get the lapse coverage that she needed? Because this is exactly what happens to people. It's a shitty system, but you just have to understand it's like what we're working with right now.
Yeah, it really is, and it's a good thing to teach people because it's like, you know, my brother took the risk, Ricky took the risk, and like luckily nothing happened to them, but like one little thing that could happen, and this is nothing. $20,000 is nothing.
No,
Like,
I mean,
think about like
my
a car
surgery was
accident.
tens of thousands of dollars.
Exactly. That's what I'm
before
saying.
the insurance hit. So like you don't know exactly if you get in a car accident, if your appendix bursts, anything could happen to you at any time. Anybody that listens to this podcast should know that anything could happen to you at any time, including a bat flying in your mouth on vacation. So she said, I know what bats taste like now. It's earthy, kind of sweet flavor. So disgusting.
Oh my God. Well, I mean, listen, bats, rabies is so fatal. I don't care, like, if I was going, even if she knew she was going to be in $20,000 worth of debt, like, I would not mess around with that. There's been,
No
out of
way.
every single human that's ever gotten rabies, there's only been like 20 cases in the history of forever that people have survived it. No thanks.
That's like
That
a
would
you
scare the
deal with
shit out
that
of me.
later type of deal. You just have to get the care for yourself at that point. All right. Last week, a 20-year-old woman riding a bus was found dead, and the cops were surprised to find that she had 26 iPhones glued to her body.
All right, so this is really weird. I guess as of right now, they're not saying exactly what her cause of death was, which I really hope that they get back to us with this because I'm really curious. I mean, just besides the fact that this is so bizarre, because I guess she also had a bag with her that was filled with alcohol and additional phones.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure, but she's only 20 years old. And apparently, people were saying that it seemed as if she suffered a seizure and then she went into cardiac arrest. So her heart stopped. So I'm really curious about this because you know how there's all this talk about the radio waves that are coming off of the phone, how they could be harmful to our health. And so the American Cancer Society and the FDA, they've deemed that there's this certain magic number that anything over that could cause changes in DNA mutation and could cause acute health effects. And anything under that is considered safe for human consumption. And they've all determined, all of these associations, that the amount of radio frequency waves that come from a phone they're not harmful at the level that they're at, correct?
Okay.
So the only thing that they're saying that there has been confirmation of is that those waves can cause heat in a person or can cause a person's body temperature to rise. Now, my question is, the studies are done with one person and one phone, right? Because who has more than one phone on them? what happens, like, were those phones that were glued to her body, were they on? Were they working? And what happens when a person has 20 phones now on their body and 20 amount of those radio frequency waves right adjacent to their body? Because when you think about people that have hyperthermia or an increased body temperature, which is anything that could be over 103 degrees, you could see people start having seizures and stuff. So was the actual waves from the phone causing it? Or like was she being trafficked or something? Or was she trying to smuggle the phones? Like who knows what was going on there?
Yeah, I guess their leading theory is that she was trying to traffic the items. Also, is it possible that, like, I'm thinking to glue these objects on her body, she's probably using something like epoxy, right? Which is extremely toxic. So could that have been an issue too?
Yeah, absolutely. I just don't like why do you, if you had, let's say you had 50 phones in your bag, like what do you traffic? I don't understand what you're smuggling. Is it not legal to have that many phones on you? Like I just don't understand it.
I don't know. This happened in Brazil, so I'm not exactly sure what the item trafficking was or if having phones was illegal. It just seems very unusual. My question for you is like if you get a person, well, I'm assuming these like are these phones glued to her like undershirt or are they glued to her skin directly?
I have no idea.
So if you get an autopsy where somebody has objects glued all over them, what do you do about it? Because they said they had removed the phones to put into evidence.
Yeah, I mean, you would just document all of them and extensively. I mean, I don't know how extensively they would do it, but you could do it down to like what serial number was located at what part of the body. And then you would just take it off, photograph it, document it, and give it to the authorities who are doing an investigation, because obviously, like, especially if they were iPhones, they're all tracked, right?
Yeah.
You know where they all came from. There's GPS on all of them. You could probably trace where it originated and where it is now. Like I just really want to know more about this because it's just so bizarre.
It really is. Okay, let's move on to questions of the day. Every Friday at the @MotherKnowsDeath Instagram account, you guys could head over to the story and ask whatever you want. First, for the Idaho murders, is it normal when there is a victim of murder to not be able to be viewed by their family members? Just surprising the family didn't know what happened to them until recently. Is that because of the gag order?
You mean to like actually view their body, like their dead body, or their autopsy report? I don't know what's going on with the autopsy report, but this is interesting that somebody brought this up today because I saw, um, I think it was the Twitter account or X account of the podcast Pretty Lies and Alibis
Mm-hmm.
yesterday. They posted that they tried to get all of the records from the Brian Koberger case, all of the records, not just the ones that have been available to the public, like all of them, which would make the staff there have to go through every single document and redact everything that needed to be redacted, and it would cause so much work. Guess how much they said it costs?
How much?
$20,000.
What?
So the Pretty Lies and Alibis podcast was like, yeah, I'm gonna have to pass, right? But like, will Dateline pass on that? Because that's not shit to them. You know what I mean? It's interesting. And listen, at first I was like kind of butthurt by it, and I was like, this is really messed up that they're like gonna be making money off this. But it sounds like the amount of work that would go into it, like they have to pay employees to do all that work.
But aren't they paying? Isn't somebody redacting them anyway, and that's why they're taking so long to get released and coming out in like different increments?
I don't know, and I don't know if they're all getting released.
I mean, I requested the autopsy report 2 weeks ago. I haven't even heard anything back.
Yeah. So anyway, getting back to that, that's what I was going to say. So all I saw so far in the documents that have been released for free online is an autopsy summary, which is nowhere near what the autopsy report is. And I'm kind of like not 100% impressed with the way that the injuries have been described. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know how they do the reports. I'm sure each person had an individual report. I haven't seen them yet, but So as far as seeing that, I don't know. I'm assuming that because of the gag order, the families didn't have access to that. And I'm not sure, like, I, I'm not sure that that's necessarily like a bad thing. Did they need to have access to that? I mean, like, I'm just trying to think, like, if Maria got stabbed to death in college, obviously as a parent, I would want the right to that because it's my kid. But at the same time, I don't know if I could ever read one of my family members' autopsy reports.
I would just think, though, as far as this question, which is like, is it normal for them not to be viewed? Do we know for a fact that they weren't viewed? Because they might have known exactly what happened at the very beginning, but because of the gag order, couldn't say anything.
No, because Steve Gonzalez said that he didn't know how many times she got stabbed.
Okay, so
He just said that. I believe he said
okay.
it. I believe the first time he found out was the day of the um, plea sentencing. I or shortly within that time. I know he's been vocal that he didn't know. Listen, like, I know that we talk about this. This is like what I talk about for a living is autopsies and autopsy reports and stuff. But I imagine if this happens to you personally, I could assure you that you do not want to see your loved one that has been stabbed to death, especially Kaylee, who was disfigured by whatever stab wounds slash blunt instrument destroyed her face, making her unrecognizable. You do not want to ever see your child like that. So you definitely wouldn't want to, like, I think a lot of times, even some people in the hospital that have been really sick and the family members insist on viewing their bodies, we would put sheets like up to their neck. And sometimes we would even cover their entire face and then we would just let their arm out so they could just like sit by them and hold their hand and rub their arm and stuff. But a lot of times you'd like there's been a lot of studies done and stuff that says that that could have lasting psychological damage on a person more than the actual trauma of the death itself. um so it happens a lot of times, like if a person's found decomposed and a person says, I really want to see my son, and then the medical examiners say we definitely highly advise against that, and they'll sometimes they even make you sign a waiver because they know, because we know how bad it looks, right?
Yeah, and they don't want to get sued.
So it's the same, and I would argue it's the same thing with the reports. And I can even say this for myself, that after I even read the little bit of the report and the summary that was released that day after Maria and I sat here and watched that plea sentencing, that I got like re-traumatized, I would say, from the crime all over again. It was so upsetting to actually hear about these injuries and to read about them and to just think about that being your child. I i i would avoid it. I wouldn't even want to know. I wouldn't want to know, because all I would think about is them laying on that table and having all of these injuries and being filleted open in front of me. Like, I just wouldn't want to know
Well, you know what that
personally.
looks like too, so I don't
Yeah.
think the average person knows exactly how gruesome that would be.
Yeah. I mean, it's just awful.
Okay, so this person says just had EMB 2 samples sent, so what is Path looking for?
So an EMB is an endometrial biopsy. So sometimes they do that. I've had two of them now. They do it if you have abnormal bleeding or cramping or anything like that. But they also do it in women who, especially women who are older and postmenopausal and then all of a sudden start bleeding. That's like a huge sign of endometrial cancer. Usually in younger people, that's not what they're looking for per se, but they will look for that as well. They'll look for anything that is potentially causing the abnormal bleeding, um, infections, polyps, endometrial hyperplasia, precancerous changes, fibroids. Sometimes I don't know if they could really get deep enough to get into the myometrium, which is the muscle under the endometrium, but they could, you could have adenomyosis, which is endometrial glands or endometriosis within the wall of the uterus itself, which is usually only a diagnosis that's specific after the uterus is taken out, unfortunately. But they're just going to be looking for all those sorts of things to determine if they could figure out that's why you're having the abnormal bleeding. And that could, like, most of the time, I mean, both times I got it done, it was like, yeah, you have a couple polyps and that's it. Like, it didn't really give any kind of answers, to be honest with you. So sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't.
Is that something you get like full blown surgery for, or they just take like through your vagina?
You can. A brave soul might get it done with no anesthesia. I wouldn't. I know that they can, but often or most times they will want you to get. I don't know if you have to get intubated and stuff. It's more of like a twilight kind of drug, I would say, because you don't. I mean, it's quick once they do it, and they could do it and take it, and it doesn't. I don't know that it requires you to be put all the way out, but I feel like both times that I had it done, it was just a twilight.
Yeah. All right, last. What are your thoughts on afterlife?
I don't know. What about you? Hear what you say first.
I'm not really a religious person, but I do in some world believe there's like, I don't know. I believe there's like a higher being, or you could be like spiritually reconnected to somebody in some capacity, but I don't know what that looks like. For me, that doesn't look like heaven or hell per se, right? It's just this thing that kind of doesn't exist. This in between where you like, if you die, you can meet up with people. I don't know, but to me, it's not like as straightforward as heaven or hell. I don't really believe in God or anything like that, but I do believe in like karma and the universe sending signals and signs and everything like that. But I'm definitely not the type of person that's into zodiacs or all that shit either. So I think I'm in this weird in between.
I don't know. I mean, obviously, I think about this a lot because I've been around so many dead people, and I like, we grew up Catholic, and I do like the idea of this fictional world that exists, that when a loved one dies, you'll be able to rejoin with them one day, because obviously that makes death a lot easier to handle, because death is so final, and just to think that that's the end of that person is just very, it's hard to wrap your brain around. So I wish and hope that that's the case, that there's this world where, like, when my husband and I die and our kids die, that like we'll all be walking around barefoot on clouds in white linen suits, and we'll rejoin each other and be able to hang out again. I guess all of us are just having a theory as to what happens, because nobody knows for sure, obviously, what really happens. So we all can have our own thoughts of what happens. And I personally think that a lot of you living on in this world afterwards is because of your impact while you're here. So, for example, like, one of my uncles died when he was pretty young, and we get to still see what he looks like kind of through his daughters, and bring up funny stories about him. So his memory is still living on, and like, even though he's not really here, he's still kind of here. And like, my Uncle Jim died, I'm trying to think, like, it's been a long time. I think
I
it's
was
been
a
like
little
25 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, for real. And like, we just were talking about him at a party this weekend. It's just like, he's still around. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's just interesting. By the way, I was yelled at because, speaking of Uncle Jim, we've never given Sean Walsh a shout out. So Sean, if you're listening, I told you to listen to today's episode. And also Jim Feely, very hurt that we have not brought him up. So
I
Cousin
guess we
Jim.
talked about Jimmy.
we talked about Jimmy. I saw Jimmy too, by the way.
Did he say anything about
No,
pop-ups?
I said, oh, we were talking about you on last week's episode. He was down the shore too. So anyway, my whole point is that I think it's important for people to leave a mark so your memory doesn't go away between your family, your friends, doing good things in the world and things like that. But as far as what happens when we die, I don't know. I just think you're dead in a box or in underground, wherever you decide to go.
So you're dead or you're dead? Yeah, it's a complicated thing, and I think based on everybody's personal beliefs, they have different versions of it, but I think whatever you need to think to make death a little easier on you is perfect, should be fine in everybody else's eyes. All right, guys, we are going to be at CrimeCon from September 5th to the 7th in Denver, Colorado. We are very excited to see you there. I think the schedule is officially getting released this week, and our YouTube Live members know our schedule already because that's some information you get on there first. If you have a review for us, please head over to Apple or Spotify and leave it there. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, and if you have a story for us, please submit it to stories@motherknowsdeath.com.
See you guys. Thank you for listening to Mother Knows Death. As a reminder, my training is as a pathologist assistant. I have a master's level education and specialize in anatomy and pathology education. I am not a doctor and I have not diagnosed or treated anyone, dead or alive, without the assistance of a licensed medical doctor. This show, my website, and social media accounts are designed to educate and inform people based on my experience working in pathology so they can make healthier decisions regarding their life and well-being. Always remember that science is changing every day, and the opinions expressed in this episode are based on my knowledge of those subjects at the time of publication. If you are having a medical problem, have a medical question, or are having a medical emergency, please contact your physician or visit an urgent care center, emergency room, or hospital. Please rate, review, and subscribe to Mother Knows Death on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere you get podcasts. Thanks.